This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by Italiancitizenshipassistance.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian Attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. And I'm Rafael Di Furia. And today we wanted to have a discussion around the forms necessary to fill out when you are applying for Italian citizenship, or rather petitioning for a recognition of Italian citizenship through the consulate or directly in Italy. So Marco, I'm just going to let you lead off with this one because I know there are many differences, but it could be worthwhile starting off in the USA as some of the documents there may be more standardized.
A lot of people, they wonder what needs to be done after they have collected all the documents needed to support their citizenship application. And we've talked about all the documents that are necessary to collect, amendments and apostilles and translations. So we have talked about those extensively in other videos. But then once they have all these documents, and of course, they need to book the appointment, and we talked about that as well. But then you have the documents, you have the appointment, and what else do you need? And you do need a number of forms and that you need to carefully prepare when you prepare to apply for Italian citizenship by descent. And these forms, they're not standard. They are somewhat standard in the US. So you'll find that every Italian consulate in the US, they require very similar forms, but it's not that they are all the same in the world. So if you're applying through an Italian consulate in Europe, for example, in Asia, you may or may not need these forms, or you may need just some of them. And it's always best to rely on the website of the consulate to understand which forms are exactly necessary to apply for citizenship. But let's talk about the Italian consulate in the US. And you'll find that what they normally require is form 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 forms. The form number 1 is normally the application for citizenship by descent. So it's the petition that you have to sign, where you basically declare your intention to apply for recognition of citizenship by descent. This form is basically a family tree that you need to fill out, that you need to complete in order for the consulate to understand the branch of the family that you're using to claim Italian citizenship. So the form will require that you state the information starting from the Italian ancestor who was born in Italy all the way down to yourself, the applicant. They will want the name, the last names, dates and places of birth and marriage and death for all of the individuals in the Italian line, and most likely their spouses. Of course, depending on the consulate where you're applying, the spouse's information may or may not be required, meaning that there are some consulates that they only require the information and vital record documents for the individuals in your Italian line, whereas other consulates will also require information and vital records pertaining to the spouses of those individuals. After you have completed form number 1, you have to move on to form number 2, which is basically a self-declaration where you basically acknowledge that you have never, you acknowledge and self-declare that you have never renounced your Italian citizenship. This is more of a formality, but as somebody who has already the right to be considered an Italian citizen since birth, you might have renounced your right to Italian citizenship during your life. So it's important for the consulate to understand that you never did so. Otherwise, you will be prevented from getting Italian citizenship. And this form requires that you state all of your place of residences where you have lived during your life with the years. So you have to indicate the year from when you resided in that place and the year until when you have resided in that place. So, for example, you would state New York City from 2008 to 2010, just to give you an example. And this form needs to be also completed with your name and last name, date of birth, place of birth, telephone number, and email address. Now let's move on to form number 3. That's the form that your living ascendants in your Italian line have to complete and through which they self-declare basically that they never renounce their Italian citizenship. So the purpose of this form is very similar to the purpose of form number 2 that you complete, through which you self-declare that you never renounce your Italian citizenship. And form number 3 has the same purpose, but it needs to be signed by your living ascendant. So if the parent or grandparent that you're applying for citizenship through is alive, they will need to execute this form in order for you to be able to apply for recognition of Italian citizenship. And that applies to people who have living ascendants, regardless of the fact that they are interested or not interested in applying for Italian citizenship themselves. So even if they are not applying together with you, they will need to sign and execute that form. And again, that form requires that they list all of their place of residences, and they will also have to indicate their personal detail, and their signature will basically, with their signature, they will acknowledge that they never renounced their Italian citizenship. And finally, we have form number 4, which is the one that the applicant itself needs to sign, but on behalf of their deceased ancestors. So if your grandfather or great-grandfather, the ones in your Italian line, are no longer alive, you will have to declare on their behalf that to the best of your knowledge they never renounced their Italian citizenship, and you will have to list all of the residences, places of residency to the best of your knowledge. And of course the Italian consulate will then use those forms and the information on those forms to actually make sure that they never renounce their Italian citizenship, because that's a prerequisite in order for you to be able to apply for citizenship by descent. Now, all of these forms will have to be signed and notarized, so signed before a public notary, and the signature of the public notary will have to be apostilled. Only the forms that need to be signed by the applicant himself, so form number 1, 2, and 4, can be signed with a regular signature if the applicant is appearing in person before the clerk at the consulate. In that case, the clerk of the consulate will basically act as a notary and will certify the signatures. So they will certify that you are signing in front of them in their presence. But otherwise, if the application, for example, is submitted through the mail, which is something that started to happen ever since the health emergency started, then the signature will need to be certified by a U.S. public notary.
Well, very interesting. But one quick question. I mean, you basically just answered it, but to clarify, these are not simply forms that you can just fill out that will be available at the consulate for you. These are forms that you need to make sure that you've already completed before your appointment, or am I mistaken there?
Exactly, and those forms will be available on the website of the consulate that you're using. So thank you for asking that question. Before you start preparing for your appointment with the consulate, whether it's an in-person appointment or a appointment that happens remotely through a telephone call, or even, like we said in many other videos, some consulates require that you simply mail in your application package. So make sure that you visit the website of the consulate where you're applying. So not any consulate of Italy. If you're applying through the Chicago consulate, make sure that you download these forms from the website of the Chicago consulate and not from another consulate, because they might have slight differences.
So if you're in San Francisco, then San Francisco, New York, then New York. It definitely makes a lot of sense there. But I'm curious, because so far we've spoken about the forms from the US. How do they differ from the forms that you might have to fill out in Italy? And in the US, of course, you have to go to an Italian consulate. You mentioned that there was some standardization between the different consulates, but with potential differences between them. How does that all look in Italy? Is it standardized? Is it dependent on where you are? Are there different forms? Is it the same? What does that look like for the individual making this petition for citizenship?
Well, a lot of people will be surprised to know that when they apply in Italy through an Italian municipality, so those people who are willing to relocate to Italy to go through the process in Italy to potentially expedite the whole process. And when we have talked about this expedited process in many videos, but when you apply in Italy through a municipality, those forms basically don't really apply, and most municipalities just require one form through which you self-declare that you are applying for Italian citizenship by descent and that you never renounced your Italian citizenship. And there is no need basically to self-declare that, to the best of your knowledge, your deceased ancestors never renounced Italian citizenship. And also there is no need to for your family members who are alive and who are in your Italian line to self-declare that they never renounced Italian citizenship. And in fact, some people who are applying for citizenship and are estranged from their families may have a hard time in applying through the consulate, because your family members will have to sign these forms, and if they don't cooperate, you will not get these signed forms. And in those situations, it's easier to just bypass the consulate, move to Italy, and apply in Italy, because those forms are not required, and basically just one single form that needs to be signed by the applicant is required in most cases.
So one thing also, just as a quick clarification to ask you, so far we're speaking about making an application at a municipal office in Italy and not through the Italian courts, correct?
Exactly. We were talking about consulates versus municipalities.
And so if a person were to be applying through Italy, through a court, would these documents differ, or would they not even exist at all?
They wouldn't exist at all. So if somebody finds themselves in a situation where they can only apply through the courts, and let's remember that somebody who applies through the courts has a very specific case, a so-called 1948 case, where there is a female ancestor who basically gave birth to her child before 1948, and that prevents the person to apply through a consulate or a municipality. So the only option is really to petition the court. And when you petition the court, when you present a 1948 case to the court, none of these documents apply or exist. So there is no need for you to present any of these documents. And the only document that you have to sign is the power of attorney, allowing your attorney to represent you in court. You don't even have to sign the actual petition, because that will be just signed by your attorney. The only thing that you have to do is give your attorney the power to represent you in court through the power of attorney.
And what about the individuals who do have a long wait time in their country of residence and decide to approach Italian citizenship through the courts? Not the 1948 cases, but these newer cases that are now being more commonly accepted.
Exactly. So recently, due to the long wait times at some Italian consulates, some people have started to petition the courts in Italy, and that includes many of our clients, where basically we say to the court that the person is prevented from getting their citizenship recognized quickly at a consulate, and they have the inability to move the residency to Italy. So the only option is to petition the court, and these cases are being successful, of course. Now, the process is exactly the same as a 1948 case. So it involves giving a power of attorney to your attorney, and that's basically the only document that you have to sign, the document that allows your attorney to represent you in court, which is the power of attorney.
Well, Marco, thank you so much for making yourself available and to answer all of these questions and to clarify these topics. But of course, if anybody is needing help to become an Italian citizen, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, Italiancitizenshipassistance.com, or give us a call. Our number is on the website.
Well, absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more information like this about Italian citizenship, make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well as the audio-only podcast on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. But of course, if you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, you are also automatically subscribed to the Italian Real Estate Podcast, another podcast where Marco and I talk about some of the practical aspects of physically making Italy your home. And how to rent, how to purchase, where to purchase, the various aspects of being able to call Italy your home in that regard. Of course, if you're also interested in more information about life abroad and living abroad, be sure to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can find my video podcast through YouTube, Google, or your favorite podcasting platform of choice if you search for Not Your Average Globetrotter. But Mr. Marco Permunian from Italiancitizenshipassistance.com, thank you so much for making yourself available. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.